Good afternoon, everybody. There was some technical problem, and some of the students had joined 27th class. Okay, I think they are still joining. So today I'll be discussing regarding preparation of peripheral blood smear and determination of differential leukocyte count. Okay, so how to make a peripheral blood smear, I'll be discussing in today's class on how to make a peripheral blood smear, and tomorrow I'll be discussing regarding a differential leukocyte, how to perform a differential leukocyte count. So this comes under hematology major practicals, right? And it is very essential also. It is performed as a routine hematologic test in patients along with total leukocyte count. Most of the times, along with total leukocyte count, the differential leukocyte count is also performed very routinely for the assessment of infections, inflammations, right, and several other clinical conditions, right. So for today's class, I'll be discussing regarding how to make, what is a peripheral blood smear and how to make a peripheral blood smear, and how to stain the peripheral blood smear, and to assess the quality of the stained smear, because only good quality smears can be used for microscopic examination. That's why you must know how an ideal peripheral blood smear looks like, right? This is a peripheral blood smear. This is a glass slide, and on this there is peripheral blood smear or a thin film of blood. To the left is blood smear which is not stained, and to the right is the blood smear after staining with Leishman stain. Okay, so this is unstained peripheral blood smear. This is the stained peripheral blood smear. So what is this peripheral blood smear? So as the name suggests, in peripheral blood smear you are going to take a drop of blood. Usually it is after finger prick. So you are going to prick the finger, take that drop of blood on the slide, okay, and it's a small drop, not a big drop. So you're going to take a small drop of blood on the glass slide. Then with another slide which is called as spreader, it is spread into a thin film. Okay, so the blood drop that you have taken on the glass slide, it is spread into a thin film. That constitutes a peripheral blood smear. Then once it is, the blood is spread into a thin film, it is immediately dried by waving the glass slide in the air, and then it is stained with the help of Leishman stain. Okay, this is peripheral blood smear. Okay, now this peripheral blood smear, it is very routinely performed, and as I discussed, along with the total leukocyte count, to assess inflammation, to assess infection, because there is the count of the WBC. So peripheral blood smear, it is basically performed for determination of a differential leukocyte count. Okay, total leukocyte count is different from the differential leukocyte count. In total leukocyte count, what you are doing is you are going to estimate the total number of leukocytes present in a unit volume of blood. Like in 1 cubic millimeter, what are the total number of leukocytes? So there, in total leukocyte count, you are not giving a consideration of what type of leukocyte it is. It is just the total number of leukocytes. Now, in differential leukocyte count, what you do is you determine the percentage distribution of different kinds of leukocytes. For example, you are going to count 100 cells. In a differential leukocyte count, you are going to count 100 cells, and out of 100 cells, what is the percentage of neutrophils? What is the percentage of eosinophils? What is the percentage of basophils? What is the percentage of lymphocytes? What is the percentage of monocytes? Okay, so each type of leukocyte you are going to count and get a number separately out of 100 cells. So it is percentage distribution of each type of leukocyte is differential leukocyte count. For example, you might have counted 50 neutrophils out of 100 cells that you have counted. So it will, the differential leukocyte count of neutrophils is 50%. Suppose you have counted 3 eosinophils out of 100 leukocytes. So differential leukocyte count of eosinophils will be 3%. Like that, you're going to count all the components, like what is the percentage of neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, lymphocytes, and monocytes. So that is a differential leukocyte count. So total count will give an idea of what has happened to the total count. It is a global idea. It is like what has happened to total. It might have increased or it might have decreased, or there might not be any change. In differential leukocyte count, you will get information regarding each component of leukocyte. For example, in a pyogenic infection, there may be the total leukocyte count is increased. If you perform a differential leukocyte count, you will find that the neutrophils are increased. Okay, in a patient with bronchial asthma, when you're doing a total leukocyte count, you may find some increase in the total leukocyte count. When you're doing a differential leukocyte count, all other leukocytes may be normal, but eosinophils will be increased. So this gives an idea, or it gives an indication towards what is the underlying cause of change in the leukocyte count if you have found the total leukocyte count. Clear? Okay. So always, usually, the differential leukocyte count is performed along with the total leukocyte count, right? And for differential leukocyte count, you have to prepare a peripheral blood smear, right? Now, this peripheral blood smear, it is not only used for differential leukocyte count, but peripheral blood smear is also used to study the morphology of the RBCs, to study the morphology of the platelets, right? In addition to the counting of the leukocytes, that is the differential leukocyte count, you can also, there are several other uses of a peripheral blood smear, like you can study the morphology of RBCs, whether they are single shaped cells, whether they are macrocytes, whether there are microcytes. Okay, so you can study regarding the morphology of RBCs. You can study regarding the morphology of the platelets, right? And it may be, the peripheral blood smear may also be used in the diagnosis of some of the parasitic infestations. Like in case of malaria, you can find the malarial parasites. In case of filaria, you can find the microfilaria in the peripheral blood smear, and even in trypanosomosis. Clear? So there are several other uses of the peripheral blood smear in addition to the differential leukocyte count. Also, the peripheral blood smear can also be used for the diagnosis of the type of leukemia. You are looking at the blast cells which is present, and you can diagnose what kind of leukemia it is. Right? So these are the different uses of a peripheral blood smear. Now, this peripheral blood smear has a unique feature. Right? What is unique of this unique feature of a peripheral blood smear is you can retain, you can preserve the peripheral blood smears. These whatever smears are there, you can preserve them, you can retain them for days, months and years. And you can once again look back, study the cells under the microscope, and if there were any errors, if you feel that there are any errors, you can correct the errors. Suppose you are going to study the clinical status of the patient. You can keep this peripheral blood smear, put the patient on treatment. After a few days, prepare another peripheral blood smear, study the previous one, study the present one, compare the two and assess what is the response of the patient to the treatment. So this is a unique feature of peripheral blood smear. You can preserve the slides, you can retain the slides. Unlike in the total RBC count or the total leukocyte count, what happens, once you count those slides, you can't keep it. Here, peripheral blood smear, you can preserve them and reassess these slides, and you can recheck your findings. You can once again recheck your findings. You can assess the prognosis of the patient to the treatment, and how, if the patient is put on any treatment, how is the progress, right? This is one unique feature of the peripheral blood smear. You can retain and preserve these slides, okay, for days, months and even years, right? Now, what all are required for performing this experiment? You require about 4 to 5 glass slides. These glass slides must be clean. They should be grease free. If the glass slides are not clean, if they are not grease free, you will not get an ideal blood smear. Then you need a compound microscope, you need the pricking apparatus, you need Leishman stain for staining. So the stain that is used in the differential leukocyte count or staining the peripheral blood smear is the Leishman's stain. Okay. And also you need the distilled water and the other things in addition to the pricking apparatus like the spirit swab, right? Okay. So these are the major ones that are required. Now what is this Leishman stain? So this Leishman stain belongs to the Romanowsky group of stains. Leishman stain, it belongs to the Romanowsky group of stains. It has an acidic dye and a basic dye. Two components are there. One is an acidic dye and a basic dye. So now Leishman stain, it contains eosin, methylene blue and acetone-free methyl alcohol. Okay, Leishman stain contains eosin, methylene blue and acetone-free methyl alcohol. Now, as I have told, it contains a acidic dye, it contains a basic dye, so that it can stain different particles or different components of the cell. Okay, so basic dye, basic particles can take an acidic dye and acidic particles take a basic dye, so that you can observe the different components because the differential coloration of the different components. Now eosin is that it is an acidic dye. It stains the basic particles. Okay, so eosin is an acidic dye. It stains the basic particles. What it stains? It stains the hemoglobin of the RBCs. It stains the granules of the eosinophils. Okay, so eosin is an acidic dye. Methylene blue is a basic dye. It stains the acidic particles. So what all components of the cell take up the methylene blue? So the nuclei of the WBCs, the cytoplasm of the WBC and the granules of the basophils take up methylene blue. Now you all know granules of neutrophils take both eosin and methylene blue stain. Okay, granules of neutrophils take both eosin and methylene blue stain. Right. So eosinophils, granules of eosinophils take the eosin stain. Granules of basophils will take the methylene blue stain color, and methylene blue also stains the cytoplasm and the nuclei of WBCs. Right. The third component of the Leishman stain is acetone-free methyl alcohol. Right. Now methyl alcohol acts as a fixative. Now once you are spreading a thin film of blood on the glass slide, you need that before you examine or stain the smear, you need that the cells should get adhered or the cells should get glued or it should get fixed to the slide, so that once you stain, the cells are not getting washed away. So this function is performed by methyl alcohol. Okay, so methyl alcohol acts as a fixative. It helps in the gluing of the cells or fixing of the cells to the glass slide. Then it also preserves the cells in whatever chemical state or morphological state they were. So the cells appear as near to live cells as possible. Okay, so it preserves the cells in whatever state, morphological state or chemical state they were while you are preparing the smear, so that they appear real. Okay, so three important components of Leishman stain. One is eosin, methylene blue and acetone-free methyl alcohol. Why acetone-free? Methyl alcohol should be free of acetone because acetone is a lipid solvent. If acetone is present in the methyl alcohol, there will be crenation of the cells, disruption of the cell membrane, right? So you may not be able to identify the cells if the morphology of the cell is disturbed. That's why care is taken that methyl alcohol is free of acetone, right? Acetone is a lipid solvent. It will disrupt the cell membrane of the cell. So the morphology of the cells get altered. You don't want that to happen. That's why methyl alcohol is kept acetone free. Now, how to prepare a peripheral blood smear? Okay. Once again, I am stressing on the point that the slides should be grease free. If the slides are oily, then you will not get a properly spread blood film. If you don't get a proper blood film, you can't stain them properly. Why? And if they're not stained properly, you can't visualize them and do the differential leukocyte count. Right? So it is essential that you take about 3 to 5 clean grease-free glass slides, and one among them is used as a spreader. Spreader is to spread the drop of blood into a film. Okay. Now, under all aseptic precautions, you are going to prick the finger. As usual, you are going to discard the first drop of blood. Then you will take the glass slide to the finger and touch it to the drop of blood. Right, in this figure also it is given. The glass slide is taken to the finger with the drop of blood. Right, and at no point you are supposed to squeeze your finger. And for that, what you need to do is you have to give a bold prick so that there is a free flowing blood, and you get an adequate sized drop of blood. Okay. Then only then you need not squeeze your finger. Right. Once you are pricking the finger, take the glass slide to the drop of blood. Right. And such 3 to 5, at least 4, minimum 4 smears you have to prepare. Okay. Out of the 4 smears, the best one is used for counting. So you're going to take the drop, you're going to take the slide to the finger, touch it to the drop of blood, put it on the working table. Take the next slide, touch it to a drop of blood on the finger, put it on the working table, and then you are going to make 4 slides. Once you are taken the drop of blood, okay, it is a small amount of blood, it is not a big drop of blood. If you take a big sized drop of blood, then you will get thick films. Thick films are not ideal for microscopic examination. So I have told that one of the spreader will be used as one of the slides will be used as a spreader. So now this is the glass slide with a drop of blood. Where you are going to take the drop of blood? You are going to take the drop of blood on one end, about 1 centimeters away from one end in the middle. Okay, you are not going to take somewhere here. It should be 1 centimeter from one end in the middle. Right. Now hold the other end of the slide that is opposite to the drop of blood. Hold it with your left hand with the index and the thumb for proper grip. Then hold the spreader with the right hand. First you have to place the spreader in front of the blood drop, and it is essential that you maintain angle of 30 to 45 degrees between the spreader and the glass slide. So this angle should be 30 to 45 degrees, because the angle at which you hold the spreader also determines the thickness of the peripheral blood smear. So it is important that the spreader should be held at an angle of 35 to 45 degrees, and first it should be placed in front of the blood drop. Then you have to gently slide the spreader backwards till the spreader touches, the edge of the spreader touches the drop of blood. Once it touches the drop of blood, the blood will spread along the edge of the spreader. You have to allow it to spread or wait for the blood drop to spread. If it doesn't spread, then you will get a thin, you will get a narrow strip of thick blood smear in the center. Okay, again that is not ideal. So allow the blood drop to spread along the edges of the spreader. Then once the blood drop spreads along the edge, with a brisk, quick, smooth, single movement, you should move the spreader quickly, a single movement, smoothly without stopping in between. Okay, move forwards till the other end so that the blood drop spreads into a film. Okay, so once it is spread like this, immediately you have to wave the glass slide in the air and dry it. Okay, so once the film, with the help of a spreader, you are spreading the blood drop into a thin film, it should be immediately dried by waving the slide in the air. Okay, so the first step is you collect the blood on the glass slide. You place the spreader in front of the blood drop, maintain an angle of 30 to 45 degrees, then glide the spreader backwards. You have to bring it till it touches the drop of blood. Allow the drop of blood to spread by capillary action. Once it spreads along the edge of the spreader, move the spreader forwards in a single movement, quickly, smoothly. Okay, right, forwards, so that a thin film of blood is obtained on the glass slide. Meanwhile, you have to maintain the angle of 30 to 45 degrees. You should not move the spreader very fast, or you should neither very slowly, because again the speed at which you move the spreader will determine the thickness. If you move very fast, a thick film will be formed. If you move very slowly, a thin film will be formed. Therefore, the speed at which you are moving the spreader is crucial. Right. Now, the same figure. This is a drop of blood. First you place in front, then pull it behind, allow it to spread. Then you're going to gently, briskly, you're going to move forwards till the blood smear is formed. Maintain angle of 30 to 45 degrees. Okay. So you'll be holding the slide on which the blood drop is there with the left hand. You'll be holding the spreader with your right hand. Okay. So once the film is blood film you have made, you have to immediately dry it. Otherwise, if you don't dry it immediately, the morphology of the cells will get altered. The cells will become smaller. There will be shrinking of the cells. So that's why immediately you have to dry it. Now, so this is how the ideal smear should be. This is the unstained one. It should appear, it should cover about 2/3 of the length of the slide. Okay, it should cover 2/3 of the length of the slide. Then it should be tongue shaped with the head, body and tail. So an ideal peripheral blood smear should be tongue shaped with 3 parts. This is the head, this is the body, this is the tail. Okay, then it should be of uniform thickness without any gaps or striations. They should neither be longitudinal or vertical striations, neither there should be any vacant areas. So it should be of uniform thickness. The peripheral blood smear should be neither be very too thick nor too thin. Now you can assess. How do you assess for thickness? So if you are holding the smear or the slide with the smear against a white background, if it is very thick, it appears bright red. Right? If it is very thin, it appears faintly pink. Ideal peripheral blood smear will be buff colored. So this is buff colored. It's some slightly yellowish brown. Okay, slightly yellowish brown. If it is bright red, it means it is thick. If it is faintly pink, it means it is thin. Okay, so the peripheral blood smear should be translucent. It should be buff colored, right? And when you look this peripheral blood smear, when you focus under microscope, okay, before staining, you are going to focus it under microscope and check for the distribution. So when you are looking under the microscope, particularly the body of the smear, you find that the RBCs should lie separately. There should not be overlapping of the RBCs. Okay, the RBCs should lie separately and they should be just touching of the RBCs here and there without any overcrowding or overlapping. So these are the criteria for an ideal smear. Okay, so it should occupy 2/3 of the length of the slide. It should be tongue shaped with head, body and tail. It should be neither be too thick nor too thin, and it should be of uniform thickness without any vacant areas or striations. And when you are looking under microscope, the RBCs should lie separately without overlapping. Okay. I hope till here this was till here whatever I have discussed is how to make a peripheral blood smear, right? Any confusion till here? Preparation of a peripheral blood smear. So next step will be the staining and fixing and staining of the smear. Any confusion till here? All this will be demonstrated to you once you come back. Okay. So we'll demonstrate all the steps. We'll show how to make a peripheral blood smear, how to fix, how to stain. Then we'll demonstrate different types of WBCs, and then we'll give you sufficient cycles for practice, and then you can do on your own. So this is just initial lecture part. Okay. So can I go forward, or you have any doubts? One of you can unmute yourself and let me know. Anything you want to ask at this point? If you have any doubts, you can ask, or else I'll go forward. Anything you want to know?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Right. So this was how an ideal smear appears. Right. Can you, one of you, tell me why the first one is a bad smear and why the second one is a good one? The first one is a bad smear.
It's not tongue shaped and it has the spaces in
Yes.
between.
Very good.
So
Very
there
good.
is uneven spreading.
Yes. So it is not tongue shaped, and it is almost up till the end it is, and when you're looking at the color, it is thick, bright red. So it's a thick smear. There are striations here. Okay, there are transverse or longitudinal striations, and blood was allowed to clot. So the process was not done quickly. Therefore, there are some areas of clotting here. Okay, so the blood was allowed to clot before it was spread into a smear, and there are vacant areas or gaps here. Okay, so this one is not an ideal peripheral blood smear, and if you stain these and focus under microscope, you will not get a good view of the cells. It will be very difficult for you to identify the different types of leukocytes. Okay, so these are the features why the first one is a bad smear, while the second one is a good peripheral blood smear. So this is buff color, this is bright red, so it's a thick one, this is ideal thickness. Again, all these are examples of how a bad peripheral or incorrect peripheral blood smear can be. Here again there are striations, vacant areas, and all the blood has not been used up. There is accumulation of blood here at the end in figure in the slide B and A. All the blood here in D, all the blood has been used up by the time it has reached the tail portion. Here there is some amount of blood is still there. That means all the when you're looking under microscope, they'll not be uniform. If you stay in this slide A and B and look under the microscope, they'll not be a uniform distribution of cells, because the cells, the particular neutrophils will be accumulated at the tail end. So you will not get a proper differential leukocyte count if you're using such slides for a differential leukocyte count. Okay, so this A is incorrect, B is incorrect, C is again thick. It is thick smear, and there are gaps in between here, right? So the thickness in B, though although it is proper, here there is all the blood has not been used up, and there are again striations. So this is thick, and here this is extremely thin, right? And D is the correct peripheral blood smear. Again, it comes by practice. You have to practice several times. Only then you can make an ideal peripheral blood smear. But it is not a difficult task. You need not be apprehensive about how to make a peripheral blood smear. So if you practice good number of times, you can make very good films and stain it properly and get a beautiful view of the different types of leukocytes. Okay. So after preparing, the next step is fixing and staining of the blood smear. So for both fixing and staining, you are using Leishman stain. So Leishman stain is used. It has stain. It has a fixative. I have already discussed. It has different dyes, acidic and basic dye. There is also fixative with the Leishman stain. Okay. Now, what is the fixation? First, fixation is the process by which the cells are made to adhere to the glass slide. Okay. So if the cells stick to the glass slide, then they will not be washed off. Right. So that is fixation. Fixation is the process by which the cells are made to adhere or fixed or glued to the glass slide. Right. Then fixation should be done immediately after drying the slides. You should not wait, like today you have made a peripheral blood smear, after a week you want to fix and stain, not like that. So today you have made a peripheral blood smear, you have to quickly dry and fix and stain it. Okay. Now for fixation, what you are going to do is, you are going to add 8 to 12 drops of Leishman stain. That is, you have to count, literally count the number of drops of Leishman stain you are adding, and the drop should be sufficient to cover the smear area. Okay. Usually it takes around 8 to 12 drops of Leishman stain. Okay. And after adding the stain, you are going to wait for 2 minutes. This 2 minutes waiting period, first 2 minutes waiting period is called as fixation time. During this 2 minutes, the cells are getting fixed to the slide. Staining of the cells doesn't take place in this step. Even though you are adding Leishman stain, in the first 2 minutes, the cells are getting only fixed to the slide. There is no staining taking place in the first 2 minutes. Okay. Now how the cells are getting fixed? The cells are getting fixed by the action of methyl alcohol. So what this methyl alcohol does is, it precipitates the plasma proteins. So you know in blood there are plasma proteins. Methyl alcohol precipitates the plasma proteins, and plasma proteins, the precipitated plasma proteins in turn acts as a glue. It acts as a glue and the cells stick to the slide. Okay. So after adding the Leishman stain, first 2 minutes only fixing, the cells are getting fixed to the slide. That's why it's called fixation time. After 2 minutes, you're going to add, you're going to see properly, you're going to, immediately after adding the stain, you're going to check the time, wait for 2 minutes. After adding 2 minutes, after waiting for 2 minutes, you're going to add double the number of drops of distilled water. Suppose you have added 9 drops of Leishman stain, you're going to add 18 drops of distilled water. Okay, to completely cover the smear. See that you're not spilling the water. And after adding distilled water, you're going to wait for 8 minutes, 6 to 8 minutes. Total waiting period is 10 minutes. 2 minutes in the fixation. Now for staining, 8 minutes. So total waiting period will be around 10 minutes. Okay. So after adding distilled water, you're going to wait for 8 minutes. Meanwhile, you're going to gently mix the distilled water and Leishman stain by blowing air with a dropper. You all know dropper. You're just gently. It is not a vigorous mixing, right? It is with the help of a dropper, you are going to mix the distilled water and the Leishman stain. So once the distilled water and Leishman stain are getting properly mixed, you can see a thin greenish layer on the surface, that is called as scum, greenish scum. It is called as greenish scum. Okay, if there is proper mixing on the surface, you can find a greenish layer present. Okay, that is called as greenish scum. This waiting period of 8 minutes is called as staining time. Like first 2 minutes it was called fixation time. This 8 minutes is called as staining time. Okay. Now how staining works? So what is the role of distilled water? So in the Leishman stain, the eosin and methylene blue are present in an unionized state. Right, the eosin and methylene blue dye, they are present in an unionized state. so they can't penetrate the cells, right? On adding distilled water, they'll be ionized. The stain particles will be ionized. The ionized stain particle penetrate through the cell membrane and stain the different components of the cell. Okay, so distilled water, it helps in the ionization of the stain particles. That is, leucine is getting ionized, methylene blue is getting ionized. They move into the cell and stain the different components of the cell. Right. So staining occurs in presence of distilled water. Better than distilled water, there is something called as buffered water. Buffered water, which is having a pH of 6.8. It's a phosphate buffer. It has a pH of 6.8. At this pH of 6.8, there is optimum ionization of stain particles. So better than distilled water is buffer water, but if buffer water is not available, distilled water also will do good, will do its job, right? So first 2 minutes you have added the stain, 8 to 10 drops, wait for 2 minutes, then add distilled water, mix it properly, wait for 8 minutes, total waiting period is 10 minutes. After waiting for 8 minutes, you are going to pour off the stain, whatever distilled water and Leishman stain was there, you are going to pour it off and hold the slide what that has been stained under a tap with a thin stream of water falling first on your finger then on the slide. Okay, that is, you are gently, very gently washing the slide. If at this stage you are not gently washing it, your smear will get washed off. So it should be a very thin stream of, narrow stream of water falls on your finger and then on the slide. Okay, you are going to wash it. How long you are going to wash? For 2 minutes. After staining, your smear will appear like this. This was before staining. After staining, it appears like this. So this was the procedure of staining, fixation and staining. Then after you have washed the slide, keep the slide upright so that it dries. Okay, you are going to keep it upright, the slide, so that the slide, the smear that has been stained, it dries. Once again, you are going to assess for the quality of the stain smear. That was first check was you assessed for the quality of the smear after you made it. Second one, again you will assess for the quality of the stain smear. Okay. Now this is done under a microscope. So first, always you are going to, once the smear is completely dry, properly stained, you are going to focus the microscope first under low power, then under high power, finally under oil immersion. Okay. First under low power, you are going to see for the distribution of RBCs, then under high power how it looks, and under oil immersion. So this is the stained smear. This is under low power. The RBCs will appear as dots. Okay. WBC, nuclei of WBCs can be seen, but you can't differentiate which kind of WBC it is. So this is under low power. RBCs are looking like dots. So here you look for distribution of the RBCs. Then this is under 40x, 40 times magnification, high power. Here you can see RBCs, which they are appearing dull orange pink with the central pallor. This is called as central pallor. This pallor in the staining is slightly light in the center because of the biconcavity of the RBCs. This is called as central pallor. Right, this is called central pallor. Then you can also find some WBCs, but usually identification is difficult under high power. Identification differential leukocyte count is done under oil immersion. So this is under oil immersion. You are going to put a drop of cedarwood oil. Then you are going to change the objective from 40x to 100x. Then immerse the objective completely in the cedarwood oil and then observe under the microscope. This is how it appears under oil immersion. So these are the eosinophils, right? So 10x, 40x, this is 100x. Oil immersion, this is naked eye examination of the stained smear. Again, this is under high power, this is under oil immersion. So always identification and counting is done under high power. So these are the RBCs. These purplish spots that you're seeing here, they are the platelets. Okay, even here these spots which you're seeing, purplish spots, they are platelets. So you get an idea of the morphology of RBCs, you get an idea of the morphology of WBCs, you get an idea of the platelets, and in case of malaria, filaria, trypanosoma, you can find the parasites in the peripheral blood. Okay, there are several uses. Suppose there are sickle cell anemia, the RBCs will be sickle shaped. If there is microcytic anemia, then the RBCs will be smaller. If the patient has macrocytic anemia, the RBCs will be larger. Hypochromic anemia, the central pallor will be wider. Now, this is an overstained. This is overstained blood film. If the film is overstained, it appears, everything appears blue. There is no differential staining. If the smear is overstained, it appears like this. Okay. Now, these are different types of incorrect smears. Okay. This is just for your exam. The same figure again. This was about how to make a peripheral blood smear and fix the smear and stain the smear. Tomorrow, same continuation, I'll be discussing regarding differential leukocyte count, how to count the individual leukocytes and how to note down your observations, how to make the report and the applied aspect. Tomorrow I'll be discussing, and once you come back return, you'll be having a chance to perform this practical, and I have told it is a very important practical, differential leukocyte count, because it gives a clue to the diagnosis. Okay, almost always physician does a total leukocyte count and a differential leukocyte count. Always it is differential leukocyte count follows a total leukocyte count. Total leukocyte count just give a general idea what has happened to the count. What has happened to a particular leukocyte, what has happened to the count of a particular leukocyte will be given only by a peripheral blood smear. Okay, that's why peripheral blood smear is very essential, very important. You must know how to make it, to make a ideal smear, how to stain it, how to identify different types of cells. Fine. So I'll continue in my tomorrow's class how to identify different types of leukocytes. I know, I am sure that you might know how the morphology of different leukocytes has already been taught during your theory classes. Okay, it's again just a revision kind. I'll be focusing mainly how to record your observations and how to make a report. Okay, anything you want to know from me? Anything you want to know from me? Then you can ask me questions, or else we'll stop here and continue tomorrow. Anything you want to know? Fine then. Take care and goodbye. Tomorrow I'll continue with the differential leukocyte count. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.